All right, next exercise, number 2. Do men or women speed more often? Now, this data set just has men. This data set has a driver gender column. It only is M or F, which is why I phrased the question as I did. So my question is, do men or women speed more often? I am not going to clarify the question. You are going to have to figure out how you want to answer that. Not how you want to answer that, how you can go about answering that question given the data you have. And the columns you want to pay attention to are, and I'll just type them so you can see them up here, are driver gender and violation. Okay? So those are the 2 columns you need to pay attention to in order to answer this question. Answer it however you like. If you come up with an answer, think of a different way to answer the question and try it again. But be comfortable with the ambiguity I've given you. Okay? And as always, I'll be walking around. Okay, it seems like you've either got it or you've kind of given up, which is both fine. All right, let's get started here. So there are different ways to answer this question, and I think I know what most of you probably headed towards. So we'll start with that, and that's thinking of this question as, when someone is stopped for speeding, how often is it a man versus a woman? So that's how I would kind of clarify the question. And so you might start by filtering the data frame. So if you're not familiar with, if you want to filter for speeding, which is what I would start with, case sensitive, of course, so you need to make sure to get the capital S on speeding. So you could filter it by all the speeding violations, and then select the driver gender column, okay? And then what might I throw on the end to give me an answer here? I heard a sum. That's not quite what I was looking for. Count. I don't think that's going to do it. No, that won't quite do it. What I was actually looking for was value counts, which is a count of values, okay? So this immediately tells you in this data set, filtered by speeding, select the gender column, count how many instances of each. And then what if I want these as percentages? Anyone know this one? There you go. Normalize equals true. Okay. So we know that if when someone is stopped for speeding, 68% of the time it is a male and 32% of the time it's a female. So that's one way to look at this. A different way to look at this would be like, when a man is pulled over, how often is it for speeding? And when a woman is pulled over, how often is it for speeding? So it's kind of like flipping it. And you would just do the filtering the opposite way. So ri.driver gender equals male, and then from there you would select violation. Okay, so and then I'll do the same thing. Value counts normalize equals true. So all I did is flip the ordering of what I'm filtering by and then what I'm selecting. So, and in this case, I'm seeing, okay, among males, when they are pulled over, 52% of the time their violation was speeding. Okay? And if we want to duplicate this, I know if you're not familiar with the filtering, this is going to, you're just going to be like, what is that? So I understand if that looks completely foreign. I know it's confusing. It took me a long time to figure out why I have to type RI twice, but you do. So for females, when they are pulled over, 65% of the time it's for speeding. So you could argue that the first way gives us an answer of males, the second way gives us an answer of females. And there's not necessarily a right answer because it was an ambiguous question. But here's a pandas question. If I wanted to get all of this that you're seeing right now into one line of code, what would I do? And I've already heard someone say it recently. Like, what's the method I need to use? Sure, a group by. So group by driver gender, and then all the same stuff. Violation dot value counts. Normalize equals true. Okay. And now you have all that same data in kind of one compact form. So group by is like, for every gender, I want to select the violation column and do a normalized value counts. Okay. So sorry if that code is a little fast for you or over your head. Don't worry about it. In answering the question, do men or women speed more often? What's the data what's the relevant data that we're missing?
We don't know how many miles men and women drive.
We don't know how many men or women are driving in Rhode Island. We don't know how many miles they drove. What else do we not know? Well, that's kind of the question we're trying to answer, but you're getting at we don't know, number one, maybe some people, a lot of people drive just over the speed limit and technically you're speeding and you don't get pulled over, or maybe you do it strategically. So there's lots of data we don't really have that we could use to answer the question. So I'm not saying we necessarily have the data to answer that question. So really my only lesson in this little exercise is there's more than one way to understand a question. So I would encourage you, when you get a data science question, to kind of interrogate it and ask, if someone's asking you, you ask them details about what they really mean, and then you tell them the data you're missing that would help you better answer it. And then when you give them an answer, you say, well, given what I have, given that I answer it this way, here's what I really mean and what the caveats are of that. So that's kind of the data science lesson here. There's more than one way to answer a question. Okay. Questions before we move on? Yeah.
Is there a way to specify in the group by statement, I'm just looking at speeding, is there a way to filter out the other violations there?
Yes, you could, from right here.
Yes.
Oh, sure. Yes, you could do .loc. I think this will work. I think that did it. So this is a series with a multi-index, and you can select out of those with loc using essentially colon means all of the outermost index, and then I want to select speeding from the innermost index. It's kind of like having a data frame with it's kind of like you just think of this as a data frame, and how would I select the rows and the columns? And in fact, if you unstack this, you get a data frame that you could use loc with kind of more naturally to select rows and columns. That's a little bit more advanced stuff. Okay.